this video I take a look at 10 mysteries that have yet to be solved. What do you think of these mysteries? Let me know in the comments. Number 10. The Max Headroom Incident. The Max Headroom Incident was a broadcast signal intrusion that took place on the 22nd of November 1987. The Chicago sportscaster Dan Roan was covering his usual sports spot during Channel 9's 9 o'clock news segment when at 9:14 p.m. Dan disappeared from the screen as it went into darkness. Then around 15 seconds later, a figure dressed in a rubber mask and wearing sunglasses appeared. The mysterious figure looked like the AI television character Max Headroom. The figure bobbed around in front of a spinning background whilst accompanied by very little sound except for a strange buzzing noise. After 30 seconds, signal engineers who broadcast Channel 9 switched the frequency of the studio link to another transmitter, bringing Dan Roan back to the screen and allowing him to finish his broadcast. The initial thought was that it was an inside job, but when studio engineers searched the building, their search was unsuccessful as the broadcast turned out to be a pre-recording from a separate location. Around 2 hours after the first incident, the Max Headroom impersonator returned, this time interrupting Channel 11 at around 11:15 p.m. during an airing of a Doctor Who episode. Like before, the video cut out and the figure was back, bobbing in front of the rotating background just like before. This time, however, there was audio with the figure saying things in a distorted voice such as, "He's a freaking nerd." The second broadcast hack then got creepier and lasted for around 1 minute and 22 seconds before transmitters were able to black it out. It was discovered that no engineers had been present at the WTTW transmitter tower, and if there had been engineers present, they may have been able to stop the signal. While the majority of viewers found the Max Headroom hack funny, the FCC, who regulate the airwaves, did not, and put their efforts into finding the mysterious masked figure and even offered a reward. The FCC worked out that the hacker had placed their own dish antenna between the transmitter tower and could interrupt the signal like that with good timing and positioning. They had an idea where the video might have been shot based on the background in the videos. Eric Foreigner, the creator of Shay St. John, a fictional model, was considered a possibility, as his artistic similarities between his bizarre videos and the hacker's surreal footage, as well as the use of masks, meant he could be a possibility. However, Eric died in 2010 and therefore cannot confirm or deny the rumours, and so we may never know the identity of the mysterious perpetrator. Number 9. The Taos Hum Mystery. In New Mexico lies the historic town of Taos, which is home to a mysterious hum first reported in the early 1990s. What sets this noise apart from other natural or man-made noises is that it is only heard by a relatively small percentage of people. The sound reported by those that do hear it typically lies between the frequencies of 32 Hz and 80 Hz, with around 2% of the local population able to hear it, and descriptions of the noise vary, sparking a debate on its existence. Some residents have described it as sounding like a swarm of bees or a low rumbling diesel engine in the distance. While there are disagreements on what the noise is and what it sounds like, it is a perplexing mystery. The Taos Hum isn't the only one. In the 1970s, residents in Bristol, UK, reported a low rumbling noise, and there have also been reports of hums in New Zealand. The hums do, however, share similar characteristics. They are typically low frequency and only heard by some of the population. There have been several theories put forward to suggest what the hums might be. Some speculate that the noise could be coming from industrial machinery such as engines and compressors. Another theory is that it's possible that certain geological formations could create standing waves or acoustic sounds that are audible to some people. Whatever the Taos Hum is, whether it be natural occurrence or man-made such as the industrial machine theory, one thing's certain, that we may never know what the Taos Hum phenomenon is. Number 8. The Flann Mystery. On the 15th of December 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers vanished without a trace. The lighthouse keepers were situated at Flann Lighthouse, located off Scotland's coast. A relief ship, the Hesperus, arrived at the lighthouse to find that the lighthouse light was off, and the three lighthouse keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat and Donald MacArthur, were all gone. Signs pointed towards a sudden departure as the table had been set for dinner, and there was also an overturned chair. Outside the lighthouse, storm fencing had been damaged. The last entry in the log, which was written by Marshall, noted that there had been severe winds which he had never seen before, but strangely the weather reports reported calm conditions. There have been many theories suggested as to the lighthouse keeper's disappearance, such as large waves sweeping them away as they attempted to repair damaged equipment, or the three men deciding to make a new life for themselves elsewhere. Yet no conclusive evidence has ever been found, and over a century later we may never know what happened to the lighthouse keepers. Number 7. What happened to Amelia Earhart? Amelia Earhart was an American aviator who was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, as well as being the first person to fly solo from Hawaii to the US mainland. She also set various other speed and altitude records. On the 20th of May 1937, Amelia and the navigator Fred Noonan departed Oakland, California in an attempt to be the first woman to complete a circumnavigation flight across the globe. They were due to reach Howland Island about 18 hours later. The Coast Guard was waiting with fuel and received Earhart's voice messages, but it's unclear if she heard any of the Coast Guard's messages, as neither Earhart or her navigator knew Morse code. After losing contact, the Navy and Coast Guard searched about 250,000 square miles of ocean, and after 18 months had passed, the Navy declared that their plane had run out of fuel and crashed into the Pacific Ocean. It is believed that a combination of bad weather coupled with the long journey caused the plane's downfall. Another theory suggested that Earhart and the navigator were captured by the Japanese after they crash-landed on the Marshall Islands. With ongoing searches and conspiracy theories, Earhart's disappearance remains a mystery, and maybe one day there will be an answer to the question, what happened to Amelia Earhart? Number 6. The Babushka Lady. The Babushka Lady is an unidentified woman who, among many others, was present at the assassination of John F. Kennedy in Dallas on the 22nd of November 1963. What made this woman stand out from the others was that moments after the assassination of JFK, there was chaos with people dropping to the ground, covering their heads or fleeing the scene. The Babushka Lady, however, did not. This woman, known as the Babushka Lady as her face was concealed by a headscarf, appeared in many of the photos that the police had collected from witnesses. Police wanted her to come forward, as from the photos the police had from witnesses, they could see that the Babushka Lady had a camera and appeared to have captured the assassination on film. Decades later, since the assassination, the FBI haven't figured out who the Babushka Lady is. Although several people have come forward over the years, they have all been dismissed for lack of proof. However, in 1970, one woman named Beverly Oliver revealed to a conspiracy researcher that she was the Babushka Lady and claimed that she had the entire assassination on a Super 8 film on her Yashica camera. But before she could have the film developed, 2 FBI agents had taken it from her. She was told by the FBI agents that the film would be returned to her after 10 days, but this never happened and she didn't see the video again. She also claimed that she knew Jack Ruby, who was the man who killed Lee Harvey Oswald. However, people pointed out that the camera she claimed to have used, the Yashica Super 8, wasn't produced until 1969. She, however, brushed it off, saying that it was an experimental model. It was also pointed out to her that she would have been 17 at the time of the assassination and not a short older woman, as the image of the Babushka Lady in the photo suggests. There are theories that the Babushka Lady was a Russian spy or a government official of some kind. Today, however, there have been no other leads as to who the mystery Babushka Lady was, and maybe we will never know. Number 5. The Overtown Bridge Mystery. In Dumbarton, Scotland, there is a 19th century bridge known as the Overtown Bridge, but it is also known as the Dog Suicide Bridge because since the 1950s, dogs have been jumping from the bridge that crosses a 50-foot ravine. It's estimated that hundreds of dogs have jumped from the bridge, with a lot of them dying and no one knows why. So what could be making the dogs want to jump from this bridge? Several theories have been put forward, one by animal behaviourist David Sands, who in 2010 figured that since most of the dogs that were jumping from the bridge were long-nosed types with especially keen odour tracking skills, they could be tracking a wild animal scurrying below. The bridge's construction, which has tapered edges, might make it look like a flat plane from a dog's perspective. There are of course those that believe that there are paranormal forces at work, driving the dogs to jump to their deaths. Local lore has it that the spectre of the White Lady of Overtown lures dogs over the bridge's edge. This lady is Lady Overtown, the troubled widow of Baron John White, whose ghost is said to haunt the estate. It's interesting to note that many stories state that the dogs appear to stare at a particular spot before jumping. The mystery still baffles scientists, and maybe one day we'll have an answer to why this particular bridge has so many dogs jumping from it. Number 4. What really happened to Natalie Wood? Natalie Wood was a beloved movie star who began acting as a child, capturing attention in the 1947 Christmas film Miracle on 34th Street. On the 29th of November 1981, Natalie, along with 3 other adults, went for a cruise off the southwest coast of Los Angeles aboard a 55-foot yacht. The next morning, Natalie was discovered floating in the water in a nightgown, socks and a down jacket. So what actually happened that night? At the time, Natalie's death was classified as an accident and probable drowning in the ocean. The coroner in Los Angeles, Thomas Nukashi, stated in his report that there were numerous bruises to her arms and legs, and they were superficial and probably sustained at the time of drowning. He concluded that no other trauma or foul play is suspected at this time. In the investigators' report, it stated that Natalie and a small party, which included her husband Robert Wagner, had left the yacht for a restaurant dinner on Catalina Island. At around 10 p.m, the group, who had been drinking, returned to the yacht. Robert stated that Natalie had retired for the night in the couple's cabin at around 10:45 p.m. Wagner was talking to Natalie's co-star Christopher Walken, and then went to join her in their cabin, only to find her missing. Wagner and the others found that the dinghy, which had been used earlier that night to reach the yacht, was missing, and they radioed for help. The harbour patrol, as well as private searchers and later the Coast Guard, all combed the water and island coastline. It was a sheriff's helicopter that spotted Natalie's floating body. She was pronounced dead at 7:44 a.m. on the 29th of November. After Natalie's death, there were many questions that were unanswered, and in 2011, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopened the investigation. In 2018, Captain Christopher Bergner of the Homicide Department said that a different timeline of Natalie's final hours had emerged, as well as new witnesses. At a press conference, John Corina, a lieutenant at the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau, said that Robert Wagner was a person of interest, as he was the last one with Natalie, and somehow she ends up in the water and drowns. The new witnesses stated that they could hear a couple arguing loudly, as well as a woman calling for help. Dennis Davin, who was the 4th person on the boat and the captain, also stated that there had been an argument. Some of the details that have emerged about what happened on the yacht speak of drunkenness, rage and accused infidelity. Like Robert Wagner, Christopher Walken has said very little in public about Natalie's death. Walken suggested that people couldn't handle the strangeness and the randomness of Wood's death. Maybe one day we will get a conclusive answer as to the exact details that led to Natalie Wood's drowning. Number 3. The disappearance of Maddie McCann. On the 3rd of May 2007, Madeline McCann was on a holiday in Portugal with her parents Kate and Jerry McCann and her younger brother and sister. On the evening of the 3rd of May, her parents went for dinner with a group of friends at a restaurant complex about 100 yards away. The adults had a rota system in place to check on all the children during the evening. However, when it was Kate McCann's turn to check on the children, she discovered that Madeline had gone. Police were called, staff and guests at the complex all helped search for her until daybreak. Border police and airport staff were put on alert, with hundreds of volunteers joining the efforts to find her. On the 12th of May, after the efforts to find her yield no result, the Portuguese police say that they believe Madeline was abducted but is alive somewhere in Portugal. 2 weeks later, police issue a description of a man who was seen on the night of Madeline's disappearance, possibly carrying a child. In June 2007, the Portuguese police chief admits that vital forensic clues may have been destroyed as the scene was not protected. In July, British police send sniffer dogs to assist in the investigation, with inspections of the McCann's apartment and rental car being carried out. On the 6th of September, Portuguese police interview Kate McCann as a witness, and on the following day make the couple suspects in Madeline's disappearance. Days later, the McCanns return to the UK, with prosecutors declaring that there is no new evidence to justify re-questioning them. In 2008, the McCanns released sketches of a suspect based on a description by a British holidaymaker of a creepy man seen at the resort. In April, the Portuguese police fly over to the UK to sit in on interviews conducted by UK police of the McCanns' friends that they had dinner with on the night Madeline disappeared. By July of 2008, Portuguese police submitted their final report and shelved their investigation, lifting the suspect status from the McCanns. In the years since Madeline's disappearance, various events have taken place which could fill video on their own, such as the McCanns signing a publishing deal in November 2010 to write a book about Madeline's disappearance, and in 2011 the then Prime Minister David Cameron asked the Metropolitan Police to help investigate, with a 2-year review following this request. In 2012, a computer-generated image of what Madeline might look like was released. In 2012, she would have been 9 years old. There have been several instances of people claiming to be Madeline, but none of these have proven to be her. The Portuguese police stated that they are not reopening their investigation, and in 2013, UK detectives said that they have identified a number of persons of interest. And in July, Scotland Yard opened a formal investigation as they stated that they had new evidence and witnesses. A total of 41 potential suspects had been identified. Later that year, Portuguese police reopened their investigation to run alongside Scotland Yard's. And in January 2014, British detectives flew to Portugal with plans to make arrests. 4 suspects were questioned, however no new developments emerged. And in April 2017, the 4 suspects investigated by the police were ruled out of the investigation. In June 2020, police revealed that a 43-year-old German prisoner had been identified as a suspect. German investigators stated that they are treating the investigation as a murder inquiry and that Madeline is dead. And in April 2020, a German man was declared an official suspect by Portuguese prosecutors and was made a key suspect. A year later, in 2023, a Portuguese news website stated that an area near a reservoir had been sealed off and police began searching the dam on the 23rd of May. The Portuguese police said that they found nothing of significance at the dam and the search for Madeline in Portugal is over. With the investigation having so far cost the British government over £10 million, and while there are a few leads being investigated, such as the German prisoner being a possible suspect, nothing concrete has emerged. Hopefully one day we will find out what happened to Madeline McCann. Number 2. What happened to flight MH370? On the 8th of March 2014, 42 minutes after midnight, the Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, a Boeing 777 jet, climbed into the night sky, turning northeast towards the South China Sea. Its journey was from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The pilot in command, Sahari Ahmed Shah, was an experienced and respected pilot. He had on board the plane a total of 239 people, made up of 227 passengers and 12 crew, including himself, a total of 239 people. The first 40 minutes of the flight were as any flight would normally be. At 1:19 AM, MH370 approached the end of Malaysian airspace. Malaysian Air Traffic Control radioed to pass the flight off to Ho Chi Minh. Sahari answered, "Good night, Malaysian 370. This would be the last time anyone heard from flight MH370, as Sahari never checked in with Vietnamese controllers, and seconds after MH370 crossed into Vietnamese airspace, it disappeared from the radar. Any attempts that were made to contact it were unsuccessful, and commercial airplanes are supposed to be reachable at all times. They're known and tracked, but somehow MH370 just vanished. Naturally, there was delayed confusion on the part of Malaysian controllers and the airline. Officials tried to find the aircraft while loved ones waited in Beijing for a flight that never arrived. Theories as to what happened to flight MH370, its crew and passengers began to emerge. These range from the pilot initiating a mass murder-suicide plot, which stems from the fact the primary radar, which pings off objects in the sky, indicated that following MH370's entry into Vietnamese airspace, the flight made a sharp left turn and headed back in a southwestern direction over the Malay Peninsula. It then backed around the island of Penang, flew northwest up the Strait of Malacca and headed out over the Andaman Sea, where it then dropped off radar. But MH370 did continue to link up every now and then over the course of 6 hours with a geostationary Indian Ocean satellite operated by the London-based company Inmarsat. Data from these 7 electronic blips indicated, according to Inmarsat and several independent experts, that MH370 turned southward once it reached the Andaman Sea, then flew straight until it ran out of fuel and plunged into the southern Indian Ocean, somewhere between southwestern Australia and Antarctica. There is also a theory that hijackers were responsible, believing that Russian operatives stole MH370 via the plane's electronic bay, accessible by a hatch in the first-class cabin. A third theory also suggests that the plane was shot down over the South China Sea by the US military to prevent mysterious cargo from reaching China. It's most likely that the plane is in the southern Indian Ocean, but how and why it ended up there is something we don't yet know. These theories and more are explained in detail in the new Netflix documentary mini-series. In October 2017, debris was recovered from beaches in the western Indian Ocean. It is thought that they were from MH370. The loss of flight MH370, along with 239 lives, makes it the second deadliest incident involving a Boeing 777 and the second deadliest incident in Malaysia Airlines history. Searches have continued on and off, and with March 2024 marking 10 years since the flight disappeared, let's hope that one day soon there will be an answer to what happened to flight MH370, its crew and passengers. Number 1. What happened to Alisa Lamb? On the 31st of January 2013, a 21-year-old Canadian student named Alisa Lamb went missing from the Los Angeles Cecil Hotel, only for her body to turn up a week later in the hotel's water tank. No one is exactly sure what happened. Her final moments were caught on CCTV, but the footage just raised more questions. It was on the 26th of January that Alisa arrived in LA. The trip was to be a getaway from her studies at a university in Vancouver. Her family wasn't keen on her travelling alone, but Alisa made sure that she contacted her parents each day of the trip. This is why her parents thought it was strange when they didn't hear from her on the 31st of January. When the police were called, they searched the premises of the Cecil Hotel but couldn't find her. Events took a bizarre turn when the police released the CCTV footage, as the video showed Alisa in one of the lifts acting rather strangely. She can be seen pushing all the buttons in the lift, then steps out of the lift, poking her head out sideways towards the hotel's hallways, and proceeds to peer out of the lift another few times before completely stepping out of the lift. The last few minutes of the footage show Alisa standing by the left side of the door, moving her hands in random gestures as if she was talking to someone. However, nobody else was captured on the video. On the 19th of February, a maintenance worker, Santiago Lopez, found Alisa's body floating in one of the hotel's water tanks. He found the discovery after responding to complaints from other hotel guests about the low water pressure, as well as a weird taste coming from the tap water. In a statement by the chief of the Los Angeles Fire Department, the tank had to be drained completely and cut open from the side in order to remove the body. The mystery is, how did her body end up in the hotel's water tank, or who else might have been involved? Hotel staff stated that they had always seen Alisa by herself around the hotel premises. There was someone who did see her before her death, and that was a shop owner, Kate Orphan, who remembered that she had bought books and music from her shop. She said that it seemed like she had plans to return home. When the autopsy results were released, they confirmed that Alisa had taken a number of medical drugs likely to be for her bipolar disorder, but there was no indication of alcohol or illegal substances in her body. When a toxicology report came out, there were theories suggested as to what happened. Some people have said that given the use of antidepressants to treat bipolar, this can result in manic side effects, which might explain Alisa Lamb's strange behaviour in the lift. The question still remains, how did she end up dead in the hotel's water tank? The autopsy did not show any signs of foul play, however they were unable to do a full examination because they could not examine the blood from her decomposing body. Santiago Lopez, who was the first to find her body, noted how much effort it was to find her body, and it would have been difficult for her to make it to the top of the water tank on her own or without anyone noticing. To get to the tank you had to take the lift to the 15th floor, then walk up a staircase to the roof, turn off the rooftop alarm and climb onto the platform where the hotel's 4 water tanks were. If an alarm had been triggered, it would have reached the front desk as well as the entire top 2 floors of the hotel. While her behaviour could be a side effect of the medication she was taking, how and why she ended up in the hotel's water tank is still a mystery and maybe will remain one. What did you think of these mysteries? What do you believe are the answers to them? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.